Get ready for a bloody good time if you dare as we revisit the terrifying complete recap of the Chucky series. Jake Wheeler, a 14-year-old middle school student from Hackensack, New Jersey, purchases a vintage good guy doll named Chucky in a yard sale to use him in his personal contemporary art project. Jake's father, Lucas, disapproves of this hobby and, after an awkward dinner with some relatives, destroys the project. Jake takes Chucky to school the next day, hoping to sell it at a good price. He is then bullied by Lexi Cross, his cousin Junior's girlfriend. At night, Andy Barkley calls Jake and suggests caution with the doll. Upon confirming that Chucky works without batteries, Jake throws him away. Chucky tracks Jake down to the school talent show and forces him to fake an act of ventriloquism. During the show, Chucky publicly humiliates Lexi, and Jake is subsequently suspended from school for his horrible performance. Later on, Lucas hits Jake after a heated argument over his sexuality when he got a phone call from his teacher. Chucky murders Lucas soon after when he vomits the whiskey he had drunk from Lucas' bottle at his bare feet, which touches an exposed electric cable and electrocutes him in the basement. Jake is taken to live with Logan and Bree, Junior's parents, and Chucky proposes the prospect of killing Lexi too after he came to life in front of Jake and told him that his father deserved to die for always being abusive towards him. Jake returns to school after his father's death, where he's invited to his classmate Oliver's Halloween party. On the night of the Halloween party, Lexi is told to take her sister Caroline, who has begun to fixate on Chucky since seeing him in the talent show Trick or Treating, but takes her to the party instead. Jake decides to stay home until he finds Chucky missing and races to the party. There, he finds Lexi dressed up as his father, mocking his death. Despite his rage, Jake stops Chucky from killing her. That night, Chucky once again tries to convince Jake to become a killer. Chucky persuades Jake to give in to his temptation to kill Lexi, remembering his encounter with an unknown serial killer assailant in 1965. Jake attempts to murder Lexi in the woods, only to encounter Junior, who later tells Lexi to apologize to Jake because of this and Caroline's outburst of wanting Chucky. Lexi apologizes to Jake in hopes of having Chucky calm her sister down. Lexi secretly hosts a rave party with Junior, Oliver, and classmate Devin Evans in attendance. Chucky then corners Lexi in a room, causing a fire that engulfs the house as Jake visits his parents' graves. As a result of the fire, Caroline ends in the IQ, and Devin researches the urban legend about how Charles Lee Ray turned into a good guy doll. Jake is stopped by Devin's mother, Detective Kim Evans, who strongly believes he's behind the murders. At the hospital, Chucky murders the officer who found him. Devin finds Lexi and tells her the truth about Chucky. As Jake is being interrogated, Chucky unplugs Caroline's monitor, causing chaos in her hospital room. The officer's body is found, and Jake, Lexi, and Devin watch as Chucky flips them off from a distance. When the Cross family returns home, Nathan gives Caroline a good guy doll named Tommy in replacement for the burn-up Chucky. Jake, Devin, and Lexi ambush the burnt Chucky in a trash can and kick him to his apparent death. At a Hackensack hotel, Tiffany Valentine and a possessed Nika Pierce are seen living there with two male victims. The two get into an argument that leads to Nika temporarily regaining control of her body. She attempts to free the surviving victim until she returns under Chucky's spell and slashes his neck. Mayor Cross and Detective Evans hold a town meeting at the school, showing remorse for events that transpired and including announcing new city rules. However, things quickly become disastrous when the school principal's severed head rolls onto the stage. Chucky is revealed to be alive, having transferred his soul into the Tommy doll. After the events of Cult of Chucky, Andy and his foster sister Kyle have begun to hunt down the remaining Chucky dolls. With no other option, Jake and Devin successfully contact Andy and Kyle. Meanwhile, Nika reverts to her original body and feigns Chucky in Tiffany's presence. However, Tiffany discovers the ruse and reveals that she has purchased Chucky's childhood home before knocking Nika out and tying her up inside the house. Chucky pushes a cart toward Bree and throws her out the glass window to her death. Bree's therapist attributes it to depression and labels it as suicide. Jake, Devin, and Lexi set up a trap for Chucky, who attacks the trio and murders Detective Evans by breaking her neck when she falls down the stairs. At Bree's wake, Tiffany shows up unannounced and kisses Logan. Andy abandons Kyle at a gas station and heads to Hackensack on his own. Chucky acquaints Junior and convinces him to kill those he believes is responsible for his family falling apart. Chucky convinces Junior that Logan cheated on Bree with Tiffany, somehow causing her suicide, and proceeds to beat Logan to death with the doll. Both kids seek out Devon's location and realize that he has broken into Chucky's childhood home. Meanwhile, Chucky, who has regained power over Nika's body, takes Devon hostage. Andy arrives at the Wheelers' house, and Devon is revealed to be surrounded by a horde of good guy dolls. The doll Jake brought to the Cross House comes alive, but he is shot to death by Kyle, who reveals Chucky's voodoo abilities before drugging Jake and Lexi to keep them safe. When Tiffany arrives home, Chucky, as Nika, attempts to kill her, but Chucky and Junior arrive to handle the situation. Tiffany shows Chucky his horde of good guys dolls to fulfill Chucky's plan. The dolls will be distributed in a delivery truck to murder people all over the country. When Tiffany accuses Chucky of being self-centered, Chucky tells Junior to kill Nika, but Tiffany, fed up with Chucky's abusive and neglectful treatment of her, decapitates the doll before he can. Tiffany plants a bomb in the basement, which goes off and seemingly kills Andy and Kyle. At the Frankenstein screening, Chucky hides under the theater seats and begins stabbing and killing multiple guests, including Nathan. Lexi convinces Junior to do the right thing, so he stabs Chucky before being stabbed himself. Jake finishes Chucky by crushing his head. Junior apologizes before dying in Lexi's arms. Andy, who survived the explosion, hijacks the truck and foils Chucky's plan, but Tiffany's doll form reveals herself and takes him hostage with a gun. The following day, Tiffany reveals that she has cut off Nika's limbs in fear of what Chucky would do if he takes over Nika's body again. Jake, Devon, and Lexi visit the Wheeler family's graves before a gloved hand appears. While the Tiffany doll holds him at gunpoint inside the truck of good guy dolls he stole, Andy drives it off a cliff. 6 months later, Jake now lives with a foster family in Salem, New Jersey, with his younger foster brother Gary. Their therapist, Dr. Mixter, helps Caroline overcome her new fear of dolls by giving her a non-possessed doll of her own, which resembles the original bride design of the Tiffany doll. The next day, Gary arrives at Lexi's house with Chucky in tow. Carrying a homemade bomb, Chucky explains that his army of dolls survived the truck crash, and that he planned to lure Jake, Devon, and Lexi to the same location so he could kill all three of them. When Chucky is distracted, Devon tases him, causing him to drop the bomb. Gary picks up the bomb and runs, but Chucky attacks him and detonates the bomb, killing himself and Gary. Jake, Devon, and Lexi are blamed for Gary's death, and, in lieu of juvenile prison, they are sent to the Catholic school of the Incarnate Lord. When they arrive, Devon immediately recognizes the school as the same building that contained the boarding home where Charles Lee Ray grew up. Shortly after their arrival, a mail truck delivers a Chucky box-sized package to the school. Tiffany wakes up next to the bloody head of the Tiffany doll that Andy killed. Nika Chucky, who has now been Tiffany's captive for a year, says it's a warning that he is coming to kill her. At the school of the Incarnate Lord, Jake, Devon, and Lexi meet the headmaster, Father Bryce, as well as Lexi's eccentric roommate, Nadine, who admits she is a kleptomaniac. Lexi also discovers that Trevor, her childhood bully, is a student and altar boy. Meanwhile, the Chucky doll sent to the school awakens and causes a nun to die of a heart attack, whom he then photographs. Chucky photographs Jake and escapes through the chimney. He then makes his way to Lexi's room and photographs her snorting clonazepam. Jake and Devon arrive and tie him up. Jake theorizes this specific Chucky is merely a scout for someone else. After it is revealed that Nika and Chucky have formed an alliance to take down Tiffany, Glenn and Glenda, Chucky and Tiffany's twin children, arrive at their house. Lexi discovers that Chucky has only one contact in his phone, named the Colonel. Trevor, who sees the drugs in Lexi's possession, informs her that her mother lost re-election. He later threatens to use his leverage to ruin her life. When Chucky refuses to reveal any information, Jake instead attempts to sway him to their side by means of sensory overload and aversion therapy. It appears to work, turning Chucky docile and, seemingly, amnesiac. Meanwhile, another Chucky doll is delivered to the school. He kills a priest while Nadine is in confessional. The next day, Trevor enters Lexi's empty room, but the newer Chucky follows him and brutally kills him. Jake, Devon, Lexi, and Nadine are forced to hide the body. The newer Chucky, who is bigger and stronger than normal, enters Father Bryce's office and threatens the docile Chucky. Glenn and Glenda, who believe Tiffany is actually Jennifer Tilly, question her about her knowledge of Nika. Tiffany feigns ignorance. It is revealed that Glenn is aiding Nika and attempting to help her escape. As Glenn tries to usher Nika out of the house, the sight of Joe's corpse reawakens Nika Chucky, and Glenda knocks Glenn unconscious. With the aid of new metal arms, ENTIRE Chucky tries to shoot Tiffany, but the bullets are gone. Tiffany slaps ENTIRE Chucky, bringing back Nika. Glenn elects to stay behind as Nika escapes with Glenda, entering a car driven by a still-alive Kyle. The two Chuckies fight inside Father Bryce's office. The docile Chucky, now calling himself Good Chucky, gets the upper hand and incapacitates the evil Chucky via crucifixion. Meanwhile, Glenn, who has been having the same nightmare as Glenda, confronts Tiffany about Nika's captivity, but Tiffany refuses to divulge any information unless Glenn reveals Nika's whereabouts. When Jennifer begs Meg for help, Tiffany murders Meg and reveals her true identity to Glenn, bequeathing them the original Glinglunda doll. Tiffany and Glenn burn down the house and leave with the doll and a tied-up Jennifer to find Glenda. Meanwhile, Devin and Lexi follow clues from the photos on Chucky's phone, leading them to a cabin near the grounds. In it, they see the bodies of Chucky's recent victims, the Colonel, who is a bald Chucky torturing a still-alive Andy, and Dr. Mixter, who calls the doll Charlie. A flashback reveals that after the truck crash, several of the remaining Chuckies, including the Colonel, dragged an unconscious Andy to captivity. Dr. Mixter, who was Charles Lee Ray's childhood therapist, offers to help the Colonel kill the other teens. When they leave the cabin, Devin and Lexi free Andy, who demands they take him back to the school. The Colonel later kills the evil Chucky via arsenic-laced communion wafers. Andy informs the teens that the Colonel went insane and killed all the other surviving Chuckies from the crash. He kills the Colonel, but is disturbed to see Good Chucky. Mixter, armed with a gun, retrieves Good Chucky, locking Andy and the teens inside their room. Good Chucky sees Father Bryce and begs for help, while Andy breaks down the door. In the ensuing chaos, Dr. Mixter wounds Sister Catherine and knocks Andy unconscious, while Good Chucky runs upstairs with Nadine in pursuit. When Nadine tries to comfort him, he briefly turns evil and pushes her out of a window to her death. Dr. Mixter claims she needs Good Chucky, the final good guy doll, to free ENTIRE Chucky, who she calls Chucky Prime. She forces Father Bryce, along with the rest of the group, to perform an exorcism on Good Chucky to send Chucky to hell, in exchange for performing a voodoo ritual to move Chucky Prime to Good Chucky's body. A traumatized Lexi overdoses on clonazepam, causing her to hallucinate Nadine's ghost, who convinces her to keep going. Glenda demands answers from Chucky, but he simply calls them a killer and demands they help him escape. The exorcism causes Chucky to enter Father Bryce's body. Father Bryce then explodes. Nika successfully performs the ritual, and Jake attempts to kill Chucky Prime, but Sister Ruth arrives, holding Lexi at gunpoint. Jake allows Dr. Mixter to leave with Chucky Prime. Sister Ruth prepares to kill Lexi anyway, but Glenda kills Sister Ruth before she can. Andy chases Dr. Mixter and Chucky Prime. He kills Chucky Prime, but Dr. Mixter escapes. However, Jennifer escapes from the car and is killed by an oncoming truck. Tiffany and Glenn arrive at the school, where Nika attempts to shoot Tiffany, but Glenn jumps in the path of the bullet. Tiffany and Glenda take Glenn away to get help. A flashback reveals that Chucky Prime was able to perform the ritual to swap bodies with Dr. Mixter before Andy killed the doll. Now in her body, Chucky retrieves a new good guy doll from her office, which he transfers himself into, resulting in the police finding Dr. Mixter's body. With Glenn's condition worsening, Glenda and Tiffany decide to save them by transferring them into the Glinglunda doll. Now calling themselves Gigi, Tiffany ships Gigi to England so they can learn more about their origins. Weeks after returning home, Jake and Lexi enlist in group therapy, and Lexi invites Jake and Devin to stay at her house for Christmas. Chucky arrives at the house, as does Tiffany, who is searching for Caroline's Belle doll. Chucky murders Mayor Cross when she comes down the stairs, and Tiffany doesn't intervene when Lexi arrives and kills Chucky. Jake and Devin wound Tiffany, but Caroline, whose mind has been fully twisted by Chucky, claims Tiffany is her real mother and leaves with her and the Belle doll. The next day, Jake, Devin, and Lexi are visited by Miss Fairchild, who believes their stories about Chucky. 3 weeks later, after Tiffany and Caroline moved to New York, Tiffany received a threatening phone call from Nika, who is in New York as well, who swears revenge on her. Tiffany attempts to transfer her soul into the Belle doll, but fails when it's revealed to be Chucky in disguise. He attacks Tiffany as Caroline smiles. In the White House, Henry mentions how his doll Joseph protects him, which is in fact Chucky before going to sleep. James also introduces the Vice President and Melanie to Joseph, whom he brought along at Henry's request. He finds it odd that the doll has this name, as it is the name of his son who died the previous winter. When Henry returns home from school, he asks his security detail Teddy to check for him. Once inside, Teddy bends down and spots Chucky before picking him up. Chucky takes this opportunity to steal Teddy's gun and shoot him in the head. Meanwhile, Jake, Lexi, and Devin are attempting to use social media to spread awareness of Chucky and to find Caroline. Just then, they see a news story about Teddy's funeral and see Henry holding a good guy doll. They then make their plan to travel to the White House and kill Chucky once and for all. While in the Oval Office, James and Spence meet with a government agent named Price, who is investigating the suspicious nature of Teddy's death. After Chucky leaves, Price walks into the Oval Office and finds Samantha's corpse. He summons Charlotte to help him cover up the murder for the sake of James' administration. Meanwhile, Jake, Devin, and Lexi are attempting to gain access to the White House. Lexi reaches out to Grant on TikTok and Grant connects with Lexi and invites the three of them to the White House's Halloween party. Charlotte reluctantly agrees to meet with their legal guardian, Miss Fairchild. During their meeting, the First Lady allows her 3 wards to attend the Halloween party. Just then, Price summons Charlotte away, to which Chucky murders Miss Fairchild by smothering her to death with an American flag and steals her phone. He then calls Charlotte and taunts her and Price by saying that he has left a fresh body for them. Price tells Charlotte that he will continue to cover up any evidence of murders. To ensure Charlotte stays in line, Price blackmails her with evidence of an affair. Chucky then makes one final call to Jake, Devin, and Lexi. He taunts them over the murder of their legal guardian and remarks that he is waiting for them. The episode depicts the events that occurred the previous year. First, Chucky is interrupted from killing Tiffany by a police raid, and she is arrested for the murder of Mayor Cross. Nika arrives and attempts to chase Caroline and Chucky, but they escape through the subway. When Chucky discovers his doll form is starting to age, he visits a doctor who is an expert in voodoo. The doctor tells him that, as a result of his exorcism at the school of the Incarnate Lord, Damballa has abandoned him. He must sacrifice 6 people located in an evil location to regain Damballa's faith and allow him to continue living. Chucky first tries killing 6 people in a house in Amityville, but the ritual fails, so he chooses the White House as his next location. He shows up at Joseph's gravesite while the first family is mourning, and Henry keeps him. Meanwhile, at Tiffany's trial, Nika, Jake, Devin, and Lexi all testify against her. Jennifer Tilly is convicted of 103 counts of murder and sentenced to death. Despite Charlotte's objections, Price convinces her to hold their annual Halloween party at the White House to assuage President James and the populace. Chucky plans for the arrival of Jake, Devin, and Lexi, intending to kill them as his final 3 sacrifices. Henry comes downstairs with Chucky, and the 3 try to get Chucky to speak, but the power goes out again. When it comes back on, a chandelier loosened by Chucky falls, killing Annie and several other guests. Henry and Chucky are ushered upstairs as the remaining guests are escorted out. Chucky attempts the ritual once again, but it fails again, and he discovers he is even older than before. In prison, Tiffany meets celebrity chef Evelyn Elliott, who quickly despises her upon hearing that she killed Meg. Tiffany receives a package of voodoo dolls. She uses one to torture and kill Evelyn, then uses another to hypnotize a guard into helping her escape. The season ends with a bloody bang. The stage is set for an even more terrifying season 2. See you in the next recap, Flicks and TV.